back to Dr. Sarah Hill to talk about what she's really here to talk about, which is, does the contraceptive pill do more harm than good? She says yes. This is following her own experience, and she spent the last 10 years researching what she calls the darker side of the contraceptive pill. Her findings are all in here, how the pill changes everything. Good morning. Alongside her are Dr. Sarah. Very interesting, because there will be so many women watching this who are on the pill, who are perfectly happy on the pill, doing very well on the pill, and having it as their method of contraception, which you did yourself for many years. How many years?
I was on the pill for more than a decade. It was between 11 and 12 years in my life. And I had the same experience that many women have, where I didn't feel bad on the pill. I didn't have any of the, the mood-related side effects that doctors will sometimes warn you about when it comes to the birth control.
So you were very happy on it, meant you could plan your life and decide when you did want to have children. It was when you came off it that you say you started to notice changes in yourself. What were they?
Yeah, so when I went off it, it was about 3 months after I went off it that I started to really notice that I felt a little bit like I woke up. Like I felt more vibrant, I had more energy, I was going to the gym again, I was caring about my appearance in a way that I really hadn't in a while. I was like in tune with my sort of femininity. I was interested in sex.
Why is that, doctor? From a man's point of view, what does the pill do that we should be, everybody should be aware of?
Stopping it there, and welcome to Mika Reaction Reviews. We're reacting to things on the internet. Same day, same shirt, different video. And today, we're reacting to an interesting clip. She is one of the women who has been sort of championing these talks about the negative effects of birth control. And there's a bunch of clips out there of her speaking of like all the different changes, even the fact that birth control might affect your sexuality or who you're sexually attracted to, which is really interesting.
So I just got the craziest email, and I have to share this with you all because this is probably the 5th time that I have gotten this almost identical email from a reader, and I need to know whether or not this is something that other people have heard about, or maybe you know somebody this has happened to. I got an email from somebody telling me that she was on hormonal contraceptives and she identified as a lesbian, and then when she discontinued pill use, she suddenly found herself attracted to men, and now she sort of considers herself heterosexual. And this is incredibly fascinating, and it's fascinating because this is not, like I said, I think I've gotten 5 of these emails now from women saying, I thought that I was heterosexual, or I thought that I was homosexual, and then I went on or off of the birth control pill. And, what this might mean in terms of the role of hormones, in terms of influencing attraction, is just absolutely fascinating. Early on in the cycle, women's levels of estrogen are relatively high. And because this is a period of time that's associated with the ability to conceive, researchers have proposed that estrogen levels should predict not only women's interest in sex, sort of generally, and their desire for sex, but should also influence the types of qualities that they emphasize in their choice of partners. And in particular, this research predicts that when estrogen levels are high, that it should increase women's preference for men who have cues associated with testosterone. And the reason for this is that testosterone is sort of a hypothesized good genes marker. And there's been a lot of research supporting this general idea that at high fertility or during times in the menstrual cycle when estrogen is high, so right near ovulation, and 5 or so days prior, so usually like days 7 to 12 in the cycle, women express and exhibit a greater preference for facial masculinity, the scent of men who have higher levels of testosterone, faces and voices, and even the gait of men who have higher levels of testosterone. And so this research has been going on for quite some time now. It's received a pretty fair amount of evidence. More recently, researchers then asked themselves, given that women have this greater preference for testosterone markers when estrogen is the dominant sex hormone, what happens when you have women on hormonal contraceptives when their estrogen levels are kept really low because you're suppressing egg maturation, which then in turn suppresses estrogen levels? And so what the prediction is that if we look at the mate preferences of women who are naturally cycling and then compare them to the mate preferences of women who are on hormonal birth control, that we should expect to see that the natural cyclers have a preference for, on average, more, sort of masculine male faces and males who possess more testosterone markers than what we should see among women who are on hormonal contraceptives. And this hypothesis has been pretty well supported by the research, and the research seems to indicate that not only do women who are on birth control desire less masculine male faces, but they also seem to be choosing these men as their partners. So all of this stuff seems to indicate that, hormonal contraceptive use can influence the types of qualities that women are really prioritizing in their choice of partners, with women who are naturally cycling emphasizing cues associated with testosterone presence and sort of sexiness, and women who are on hormonal birth control focusing on other things.
I always say that a lot of times people live in unhealthy bodies and they don't realize they're unhealthy until they get healthy. It's the same thing when people are morbidly obese or overweight or dealing with chronic stress or chronic anxiety. You learn to normalize a lot of unhealthiness in your body and you just move on with life. And so you don't actually really feel how unhealthy you are until you get healthy. So like she said, she was on it for 11 years and she felt totally fine until she got off of it, until she actually got healthy, right? And so then she realized, oh wait, I just normalized that. I normalized feeling kind of like a zombie. I normalized having low sex drive. I normalized all these things that actually was unhealthy for me, and then I woke up out of it. I got out of that mental cloud. Luckily for me, I've never really been on birth control. Like, I've tried it 2 times, and both times I was on it for like, the first time I was on it for less than a month, and the second time I was on it probably less than a couple of months or a few months, because I had a really acute bad reaction to birth control. Like, it just made me feel like shit. Almost when I'm on antibiotics, like I just felt awful on it. And so I just got off of it fairly quickly. So I'm kind of, now that I'm seeing all these studies come out about the long-term negative effects of birth control, I'm like, oh my God, thank God I had such a acute bad reaction to it, because I think when it's a slow, like when it's an underlining negative side effect, you don't notice it or you just deal with it. And this one was so abrupt that I just got off of them.
Right. Well, I mean, the pill, it changes a woman's profile of sex hormones. And, we tend to think of our hormones as this sort of external force that acts upon us, right? Like, hormones are something that happen to us, right? And they influence puberty and cause hair to grow places that it wasn't before and all of these awkward things. But hormones are actually part of the signal, in addition to those things, hormones are also part of the signaling machinery that our brain uses to create the experience of being who we are. And so when you take the contraceptive pill, you can't just expect it to influence you from the neck down. It's also going to be influencing what your brain is doing.
So when you started saying, you felt like you'd woken up, you just were about to say you suddenly were interested in sex again.
Yes.
So you thought that you hadn't been whilst on the pill then?
Right. Well, when I was on the pill, it's funny because, and this is true for a lot of women, is they go on the pill generally, like for me, it was late high school. And so I was like getting ready to graduate from high school and go into college. And so I thought I was kind of maturing out of these things. Like, I used to listen to music a lot. I used to like to go out dancing. I was into like my makeup and how I looked. I thought about sex. I noticed men. And then, as I went into college and all of these other things, I thought that I was maturing out. I thought, well, I'm not distracted by these distracting things anymore. But then, then when I had the experience of going off of it and I found that I was going back to the gym and that I was thinking about sex, and I sort of realized that this reminded me of the person that I was prior to starting the pill.
Like, what she said makes sense and goes back to what I just stated. a lot of girls get on birth control as young as 11, 12 years old when their parents think they might start thinking about sex. And so when you're in, all these chemicals are introduced to your body so young, and then you grow up in that fog of not realizing that you're kind of sick because you've been on it since you were a kid. So it's now normalized to you. You don't even know what it's supposed to feel like off of it anymore, right? And I like what she said about the whole thing of like, no, it's not going to just affect your sex organs, right? It's going to affect your entire body, including your brain and your brain development. It's the same thing with puberty blockers right now, where they're making it seem like stopping puberty only affects hair growth and boobs and testicles and your hormones and your sexual drive and all those things. No, it stops everything. Your whole body is developing. You can't just just dissect your body in sections and decide which part you want it to develop and stop. Your whole body is a unit, right? So when you put chemicals in your body, it's affecting the entire unit, including birth control or puberty blockers. You're stopping the development of your entire unit, including your brain, right? Including maybe even your personality and shit like that. And so people have to take that in consideration when they're dumping chemicals into their body. Anyway, let's continue.
I wanted to research this because of the way you felt and started
Yes.
talking to your girlfriends and then a research project on it.
Yeah.
What are your findings? What are you trying to tell women now
Right.
who are on the... Because there'll be many women who are on the pill
Right.
watching this, like saying, are you telling us all to come off it? Or...
No, absolutely not. So this book is really just about giving women a language to explain the experiences that they've been talking about for decades. So the birth control pill has been around for almost 60 years now. And during that time, the thing that women talk about with their girlfriends and with their partners is about how the pill makes them feel psychologically. But that isn't really something that, the medical research is kind of over here, and they tend to look at things that are associated with safety, which is so important. I mean, knowing the risk stroke and the risk of stroke, good grief, I'm from America, I'm jet lagged, forgive me. The risk of stroke and pulmonary embolism, it's so important to do that. But their research is sort of over here, and the neuroscience and psychology is over here. And science isn't, there's not enough interdisciplinary sort of crosstalk. And so doctors oftentimes aren't aware of what research says about the way that the pill can influence, what's going on in our brains.
All right, guys, that's a shorter clip of a longer interview. I just think it's really interesting, and again, on this sort of journey of discovery of like all the stuff that people have been on for decades and decades and decades, now coming to light about the negative long-term side effects. Sometimes I look back on our society and I wonder what would we look like if we didn't introduce so many pharmaceuticals, so many chemicals, the processed food, the way we process our food. What would our society look like if we didn't fuck up our soil? You know what I mean? And it's sad, but unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is still mainstream. A lot of the people are only going to go with the mainstream narrative, and a lot of people don't want to do change because it's been a part of our system for a long time. Like birth control is not even a part of our society. It's a part of sort of the feminist idea of freedom and liberation and getting your life back. And I'm not making this video out of that. I'm not doing this out of this sort of red pill rhetoric of women need to get off birth control so they can have babies and be stuck to the man who they're with. I'm not with that at all. I like the idea of being able to family plan and not get pregnant when you don't want to get pregnant, and not using abortion as contraception. There are a lot of alternatives and natural alternatives of not getting pregnant. Again, I'm not on birth control. I've never been pregnant. It's really not rocket science, guys. And if anybody thinks condoms is a bad rap, then that person should not be inside you, or you should not be inside anyone if you're not willing to protect yourselves from STDs or unwanted pregnancies. But I've always been kind of anti-birth control because I just never understood, like, why am I putting these chemicals in my body? Like, when there's other ways to prevent pregnancy. And again, it's never worked well with me at all. The other thing I find interesting about these studies coming out about birth control is birth control is in your tap water. Matter of fact, lots of pharmaceuticals is in the tap water. Of course, the papers will say it's such a small trace that it won't affect you, but if you're drinking tap water on a regular basis, eventually that stuff is going to compound and may affect you. It may be some of the reasons why people are dealing with mental health issues, or why testosterone is dropping in men, where you have traces of birth control that has been shown to affect mental health issues or affect sexual drive or even your sexual attraction. So I think it's fascinating to learn about these things. I think knowledge is power. I think knowledge is liberating, and that's why I introduced these videos to you guys. I know I have a mostly male audience, so I don't know how many of you guys are interested in birth control, but I think that is still really important. Maybe you have a sister, maybe you have a mom, maybe you have a wife or something like that you can sort of, hey, you might want to look into this. A lot of the other alternatives, by the way, like IUDs and the coppers, that's also not for everyone. A lot of women are getting infections with the IUDs. I've heard horror stories about the copper one, like from intercourse, people being harmed. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the hormonal birth controls, you really should think a lot about it and do a lot of research into it. I prefer condoms, you know, following your cycle, pull out with condom, following your cycle, like, you know what I mean? Again, never been pregnant, it's worked for me. And also maybe be careful who you're sleeping with. But that's it, guys. Tell me what you think of this comment section below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that button to notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can donate. My PayPal link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. Of course, it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, and subscribe. Another great way to support this channel is either join my branded membership program, different levels, different tiers, different perks, or you can visit my branded merch shop. Links down below, and links to all of the internet platforms I'm on, including my Rumble, my Odyssey, my Minds.com, my Discord, my Twitter, all the other links to all the other YouTube channels I have, all in the links down below. And if you like, you can super thanks. I also have a second travel vlog channel. I travel as a lifestyle. I live abroad. If you'd like to know where I am in the world, you can go in the description box below. Also in the comment section, hit the link. Go subscribe to my travel vlog channel and or follow me on my travel Instagram. My stories is usually what's most up to date. And you guys have an amazing day. Bye.